slavery's on the mind again. And they're projecting some things. White House official wants slavery exhibits to be more hopeful. Hope. It seems that was the one thing missing if you were a slave. Wow. White House official Lindsey Halligan, special advisor to the president, appeared on Newsmax. What did she say? Well, she was there to say an honest slavery discussion must include hope and progress.
We often talk about preserving history in museums and not erasing it. But how do you balance that? We need to be able to review this while honoring even our not so pleasant past.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about whitewashing. It's all about full context. So while slavery is obviously a horrible aspect of our nation's history, you can't really talk about slavery honestly unless you also talk about hope and progress. And I think we need to be focusing on the progress that we've made since then, and we need to stop focusing so much on the lack of progress. We need to keep moving forward as a country. Our 250th anniversary as a country is coming up next July, and we're hoping that the Smithsonian and DC is beautiful and amazing and a place that all Americans want to come visit during that time.
So she moved from slavery to tourism, and she wants to make sure you're visiting these special places of partial truths. But she is right. There was hope, Reconstruction, right? After slavery, there was Reconstruction. More Blacks serving in Congress than, oh yeah, and then Tulsa burned and something about Black Wall Street disappeared. But anyway, what do you say? What do you say to someone who gets in front of the cameras, three white people in a tribe box across the screen talking about how we can make slavery more comfortable? That's really what they were doing. Well, Qasim Rashid Esquire works as a human rights attorney and shared the perfect response.
To the white people saying that the Black History Museum has an overemphasis on slavery, what part should they focus on instead? The part where Black people got restitution? Because that never happened. The part where Black people got reparations? Because that never happened. The part where Black people got their 40 acres and a mule? Because that never happened. The part where Black people had their civil rights protected right away? Because that never happened either. In fact, it took until 1965, and even then, those civil rights are slowly being stripped away case by case. If you don't like that a museum about Black history focuses on the countless ways that white people in power have stripped away basic humanity from Black people for 400 years, here is an idea. Stop suppressing basic humanity for Black people, pay restitution, pay reparations, protect civil rights, and dismantle the white supremacist infrastructure that sustains to this day from the legacy of slavery. You don't get to violently enforce 400 years of white supremacist policies, profit off of them, make generational wealth out of them, sustain power from them, and then look in the mirror and get offended by what you see.
Hear, hear. But then they would just say, this Trump White House, that he's being too negative. Can't you be more positive? Why do you have to talk about all that that's currently still going on? So let's talk about the research of Hannah-Jones. Of course, she's the Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who created the 1619 Project. She spent a career reframing American history around the legacy of slavery. Highlights she does just how extensive slavery's reach is. And a lot of people probably don't know this. This is why she's so important, her work. She highlighted how slavery's reach extended far beyond the South, from the cotton Brooks Brothers used to tailor its suits to the New York Stock Exchange, which was established in part to finance slavery-dependent enterprises. Enslavement, she emphasized, enriched U.S. presidents, members of Congress, Supreme Court justices, and many of the men whose faces are stamped on American currency. Thank you to the griot. All but one of the people on our cash currency engaged in African slavery, she highlighted. Hannah-Jones also drew a modern analogy to today's tech giants, noting that a very small percentage of Americans own companies like Apple, Meta, Amazon. Their influence is inescapable. It's a tiny percentage. I'm doubtful if it's even 1% of Americans, she said, and Yet no one would credibly argue that social media companies are not ubiquitous across American life. Her message was clear. I mean, if you want to listen, even if only a small minority of white Americans were literally enslavers, the system of slavery was the beating heart of the US economy and a society that sent half the country to war with the other to protect it. That's how important it was. The times are too serious for us to proliferate a simplistic, unsophisticated, and childish understanding of the history of slavery. She concluded. And that's really what we're fighting over here. If you do not want to acknowledge just truth, no one's asking you to adopt, it's not wokeism, right? What's that saying? There's your story, my story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. We're just talking about the truth here. And by the way, it wasn't that long ago. I know you're trying to erase it, not that long ago, right? But here we are. By pointing it out, by just reading about it, engaging in the truth, suddenly it is so threatening. It's so threatening to some people who say, don't punish me for what my forefathers, my grandfathers did. Listen, I would have no problem, but see, I'm a brown woman. No problem saying, oh, there was this idiot in my family who was all about this. I wouldn't think that I was superior and the things that I inherited or got decades or 100-year start on was because I was born superior. It's like the egg sperm lottery. You're not special. So why can't we just own up to the truth? Oh, because that would mean if we really examine this systemic thing, policing, where it got its roots, who built the White House? She mentions New York Stock Exchange here, references social media and uses that as contrast here. If we really acknowledged it, we'd have to say, whoa, we do owe some things here. And not just owe things. You can't just pay reparations. You'd have to dismantle a system, which means, well, I don't think it means you lose. You lose an unfair advantage, but you still have the ability to compete. You, me, just competing honestly. You're not interested in that, are you? So it continues. And it is absolutely the whitewashing of American history. Wow.